Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. Mr. Campbell, please let the record reflect that all three of the trustees are present. And exciting. There's not been a working session in Union Township since 2007. And so it's different. It's a little less formal. You'll notice our directors are not here, our fire chief and our interim police chief and our zoning director and our service director. So it's just us. And it's more of a little informal session. Communication between us and the community, that's the goal. And but welcome. We're glad to have you here. And we're going to be doing working sessions every other month on the even months. So this is the first one. Before we get into our new business, if anyone has any comments they'd like to bring to the board, please, there's comment cards over there. And Mr. Campbell, would you mind checking those out, or sure. I can? Well, not now, just when it comes time for public comments.
Okay, sure.
And if you have anything you'd like to talk about, just fill out the card. And the reason for the card is so if we need to get back with you at a later time, we already have your info and we can get back with you. But with that, we'll start with the item on the agenda, which is new business. And I'm going to pass that off to Ms. Ayers to go ahead and give a brief, and then we'll get started.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. My goals for this evening are to try and find some topics that are a little bit more educational and discussion-based in nature, so that we can have some good discussions, focus on what we need to focus on, and then our business meetings will be a little bit more focused on getting the business passed and accomplished. So for tonight, what I'd really like to go over is our 2023 priority planning and goal setting. One of the things I want to note is that, we have a staff and a township that works incredibly hard, but we can't be everything at all times. When you try and do too much at one time, you end up not doing things to the best of your ability. So the idea is if we could talk about what we think our priorities and goals want to be for this year, it gives us a chance to focus our efforts, our staff time, our resources into being the best we can at what we think are the highest priority items. These clear and concise goals help us then trickle the message down to the staff and to the residents and to hear what's important to everyone. As I've been here, God, as hard as it is to believe coming down on a year next month, I've spent a lot of time talking to the trustees, to our staff, to residents and business owners about what do we think we want to be and where do we want to go as Union Township. So a lot of what you're going to see tonight is things that I've been keeping note of as we go along, and then I'm hoping the fine members of the public that came and the trustees will be able to tell me if I'm missing anything or if we have any other ideas that we want to prioritize. And then as we go through the year, I will spend some time going over those occasionally and saying, hey, we set this goal and here's how we're making some progress, and really being accountable to saying, hey, we want these goals to happen and here's how we're going to try and make them happen. So hopefully it'll give us a chance to benchmark and know how we're doing. Obviously some things are going to get a little bit out of order as we go along, but we're going to go ahead and keep moving. Again, we talked a little about this helps me set out some important goals for staff. It also helps us budget our resources to what our goals need to be. And it tells the public that, that we're listening to what is important to them and helping to achieve those goals that they'd like to see happen. This then helps me and the staff come up with, as we're going to appropriate our funds, what do we want to see happen? That happens through the annual budget, but also we have those extra ARPA funds that are unaccounted for at this point. Do we want to use it towards some of these priorities? We also get grant opportunities frequently. I wish we could apply to every single one, but we don't have the staff time and capability to manage it. So how do we focus those opportunities on what we think is going to be the best reward for the township? I've been through a similar goal setting with each of the department directors this year. The idea is on a department level, we'll go through our goals and then hold the department directors accountable to accomplishing those. And what we're doing tonight, we'll set some overarching goals for the township. Let's go back one. I wanted to give you examples of what each department has come up with. So what you have in front of you is the development department, so planning, zoning, areas and economic development, and they want to assist in the facilitation of new software and website capabilities. This will help them streamline reservations for township facilities for the public and that township interaction for the part that they handle. They're going to be working on guiding the necessary updates to the zoning resolution to address additional modernizations desired. Starting the process for updates to the comprehensive land plan. And we're going to continue to work on new and updated business development throughout the township. The fire department wants to increase daily staffing to address the needs of the township, increase and strengthen training programs, including training hours and department structure to promote training opportunities for staff members, and then begin the initial research and feasibility for a long-term facility needs. They have some issues in training stations and as well as the location and status of Station 48. So we're going to start taking a look at those.
For those that don't know, could you tell them where Station 48's at?
That is on 125 in the, I think it's technically Withamsville.
Banks Road.
Yeah,
Withamsville.
Withamsville. And it is started out as a community center, I believe, in the 40s. So it has never truly been set up to be a fire station. So there's some studies about potentially relocating that and modernizing that fire station.
Thanks.
Thank you. Police department has some goals in maintaining and increasing hotel motel interdiction, proactive response to reduce calls for service, begin and fully utilize a new drone program for the use in the township. We did recently purchase a new drone, which will give them the capability to help in lost persons as well as crowd control and safety for large events. And there's a lot of investigatory tools they can use with the drone program. Goal 3 is maintain and increase collaboration with all the schools in the township, including West Clermont as well as the private schools. So we've been working with the new dog in West Clermont and the new school resource officer out at one of the private schools and trying to help move those relationships forward. Finally, to develop and implement a transition plan for a new chief of police. We all know in the next month or two, we're going to be appointing a new chief, and working through those transition issues this year is going to be very important. The service department wants to be looking at facilitating the improvements to the park system. This is going to include the master plan for the parks that we've started, Klepper Park new playground equipment, and the pickleball courts that we received grant funding for. They want to add staff and equipment necessary to reduce snow removal times and adequately address needs of the township. We've already added one staff person in the department, I believe for the first time in years. So they're going to be working to address those times and make sure they've addressed the needs for snow removal particularly. Also, we're going to be looking at using non-traditional burials and other revenue-generating methods to reduce the deficit spending in Mount Moriah Cemetery. I know we're going to have to address cemetery fees and how we're making the cemetery as cost-neutral as possible. So that gives you some examples of what people want to work on for each of the departments. As I've been working the past year, I've come up with some additional lists that I think that seem to be the priorities for different members of the township, and you'll see those here. Paving, transportation, including bike paths and sidewalks, recreation opportunities about leagues and events, recreation opportunities about additional outdoor facilities for public uses, improving the park amenities, trash removal as an item of township beautification, some discussion about community art or murals as township beautification, township branding and signage, removal of blight or problem properties, our public safety response, and then economic development through jobs, restaurant, and retail seem to be the big topics that come up. I'd like to take a minute to talk a little bit about each of these. A lot of them are going to be self-evident, but I think it's important to at least have some level setting that says, hey, when we talk about these as a goal, this is what initially comes to mind. So first thing we're going to have is paving. Obviously, the 2023 plan that we discussed calls for paving in concert with Clermont County so that we could take advantage of the bulk purchasing and achieve some cost savings in asphalt. The current plan is to pave 4.96 lane miles at approximately $800,000. That's compared to 4.3 miles approximately paved in 2022. The cost of asphalt has increased exponentially in the past few years. So this can be a bit of a wild card trying to figure out what we're going to pay for asphalt as the gas prices go up and down. For reference, we have approximately 133 lane miles controlled by the township. Obviously, we have state routes and some county roads that go through our township, but 133 lane miles is what we have to control. If you look at doing, let's say, a little under 5 miles a year, that's a replacement schedule, let's say every 25 or 26 years, and I'm not great at math, but I think that roughly works out. That is a concern, and do we need to look at increasing that so that we get that total repavement schedule down a bit? It is incredibly expensive, but also very necessary with our weather cycles, and I think means a lot for residents. The next matter I want to discuss is transportation, and this is bike paths and sidewalks largely. I think the township has done a wonderful job to this point with new developments and working through sidewalk connectivity. So when the township administration has gone through with new developments, they've made a priority of requiring and asking for sidewalks and green space to connect areas. But we have a lot of developed areas that don't have that sidewalk connectivity. Of all things, this is probably what I get phone calls on most, is people concerned about residents walking around and not having sidewalks to get safely where they are. We have done some work through the new developments, but also have been looking at grant funding for as many of the school areas so far as we can. OKI is funding some sidewalks around the West Clermont High School. We've applied to the CDBG grant for more sidewalks around Summerside Elementary. But what do we want to do for priority-wise about those areas that have not been addressed and that maybe don't fall under the immediate grant opportunities? Clermont County has also been working on an initiative for hike and bike paths through the entire county. Largely in a developed township like ours, that becomes sidewalks and connectivity points to more rural trails because we don't have the land available to do rural trails. But there is some connection here with working with the county to try and develop that network so that we can connect to the areas that we want to connect with. Please feel free to stop me at any point in time if there's questions here as well. But otherwise, I'll try and get through as quickly as possible. The next matter we had listed is recreational opportunities, and by this I'm thinking particularly leagues and events. This is hard to do without a dedicated park levy. It has to be funded in an alternative manner. But it is a great way to encourage community and sense of place. People can get together, enjoy our park system, and also enjoy their neighbors. Downside is it can require a large staff or volunteer commitment. We're working with the Parks and Recreation Committee for a slate of events to try some diverse opportunities in 2023. We will see how that goes and how people respond, but trying to make a few little tweaks so far to see if we can address some of the concerns. But maybe it's a priority to put more effort and involvement into this area. Next area we have is recreation opportunities, and by this we mean particularly additional outdoor facilities for public use. We have great parkland, but there can be some need for additional locations and other types of outdoor space for people to utilize. We hear a lot about, are there spaces for kids to play soccer tournaments, baseball tournaments, things like that, and are we addressing that satisfactorily in our township? I also was interested, places I've been, that kayaking and boating has been very, very popular, and would it be worth it for us to look at kayak docks and putting in boat ramps to help encourage that type of outdoor activity that we have some of in the county, but not a lot, and nothing in the township as far as I can tell. I think this also ties in nicely with the hike and bike trails and the idea of what outdoor space can we utilize together. The next matter being a desire to improve our current park amenities. What additional services or amenities would be best utilized for our current parks? The Parks and Recreation Committee is working with Choice One Engineering for a parks master plan to try and go through and say, hey, here's a current inventory of what we have at our parks and what would be the best way to utilize our space. What additional amenities would people like to see? Again, without a dedicated park levy, this does become a challenge. We have to find some funding available. As we're considering this, I'd like to consider there's some initial costs to put things in, but also some operating costs and what do we want to fund on an annual basis. Possibilities that have been discussed is about splash pad installation. Do we want to look at upgrading and expanding some of our park, upgrading and expanding some of our amenities in the parks? Next, we have township beautification, and by this we're referring trash removal. Of all random things, this is probably the second or third thing I get phone calls on, and it's trash piling up along roadways, and what are we doing to help beautify that road system? We have some ongoing programs with the court system for community service hours. The service department works to maintain our parks the best we can. Frequently the roadways are where there is problems. We could look at some additional programs to try and mobilize business owners in a better way, as well as charitable organizations, community cleanup efforts, and things to help address. But another potential for prioritization. The next matter we were considering was township beautification through community art or murals. If you're a person that likes to drive in downtown Cincinnati, you'll notice a lot of the building faces have been updated with murals and different artwork to try and personalize the area. I think it's a neat way to make our community stand out, showcase local talent, increase community pride through public displays. I was doing some research into this one and noted Arts Wave Cincinnati provides a lot of the pictures, murals in the city center. They note typical exterior mural costs $30,000 to $100,000 depending on the size of the project, the site preparation, the team size, et cetera. Other types of projects such as smaller scale interior murals, sculptures can go below or above the range. So just to give you an idea of what the cost can be associated with those. But it is a unique way for people to set their building and their area apart and have the ability for residents to go see that and enjoy that.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes,
Can I jump in for a moment?
absolutely.
I just thought of this on the fly here when you were talking about the murals. There used to be, and somebody in this room is going to remember this, maybe not you guys. Well, some years ago, there was a mural on the corner of Clough Pike and Mount Carmel Tabasco Road.
Okay.
It was on the building where currently the Little Caesars Pizza is, that building. And so you could see it from that intersection, and it was a mural of, it was like a diner, a restaurant table, you remember, Rob. And it doesn't seem like it was there long. I don't remember how long it was there, and that got painted over. Do you know the history, what happened to that?
No, my guess would be vandalism. That's typically on the low murals, and that's, if you go downtown, which I'm down there a fair amount, most of those murals start 10 to 12 feet above ground.
Okay.
Or whatever they got down low is very simple to repair because they tag them constantly. And so if you're doing a one-story building, you're going to lose half your artwork to these taggers, and there's really not much you can do to stop them.
I don't remember seeing any kind of graffiti on it, just
I
one day
don't
it was
remember.
painted over, it was gone. I thought, what a shame, it was so beautiful. I really enjoyed seeing that.
It may have just been ownership change to the building.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. But it does give you an example of
Yeah.
what you could look at in this arena. It's a neat way to make buildings unique and community set up.
Do you remember, Ron?
The next matter I wanted to put on there that I've received a couple questions on is the township branding and signage. I think we've been using our logo and signage for a long period of time. And is this the best representation for who we are and what we want to be? I've taken some pictures here of the signs that are most concerning to me. I think these look a touch outdated, and I'd like to see in the long term if there's something we could do to modernize our look. This also, in my mind, includes highway overpasses and things. One of the things I always hear is that we don't really have, I'm going to use the phrase sense of place. You know, if you're out in Cincinnati and you say, I'm from Union Township, are people always going to know exactly what you're talking about? Sometimes they're thinking of different Union Townships, they're thinking of different areas. And one way to help placemake is what our signage, our branding, and our highway overpasses, what we're known for, make them stick out. So there's some potential for long-term work on what our logo, our colors are, and then what our signage and our placemaking items can be. The next matter, always difficult to talk about, is the removal of blight and problem properties. There are two ways to address police calls. One is to put more police on the street. One is to reduce the number of calls for service. And one of the opportunities we could take a look at is removing problem properties and those that have increased calls for service. You know, I'm thinking business owners and homeowners that are not taking care of their property, not responding when they needed to do things, and not taking care of business in the way they need to. We as a community deserve businesses that are going to represent our interests and that are going to participate in the community. And do we want to take a look at working with those businesses to try and repair problems, but also if you're not willing to make those investments in the community and to make those investments in operating your business in the best way, do you really need to be in our community any longer? So looking at what our top calls for service are, looking at what our top areas of concern are, and talking about how we really address that head on. The flip side of reducing calls for service is increasing the number of officers that respond to calls, working on proactive responses to reduce calls for service. This goes with the blighted property response. We get a lot of calls for retail and hotel intervention, and what do we want to do in the long term about addressing those concerns? The last of these I've grouped together in the economic development arena, but in my mind, this could break out into more jobs, more restaurants, more retail, which are the top three topics I usually hear. And so together, these look at attracting efforts for priority job opportunities, restaurant and retail, focus on the development of underserved areas and taking advantage of proper opportunities as they arise. Priorities could include marketing current sites in the area, targeted incentives to attract investment, and working on retaining residents for all aspects of the community. We have a lot of people that come in here for shopping or come in here for a particular reason and go home, or we have residents that live here but are going to work and shop elsewhere, and making sure that we're a place that we can meet everyone's needs here and keep those dollars local. As the board's aware, and I hope the public's aware, we have had a public survey open for about a week. I'm going to leave this slide up for a bit in case anyone needs to scan for the QR code to get the survey. But this is an opportunity for residents and stakeholders to really tell us what they like, what they dislike, what they want to see in the community, and help us address some important issues. It has been open for about a week and will remain open until March the 21st. So far, as of, let's say 2 o'clock this afternoon, we've had 102 responses. And I thought for the purposes of this discussion, it was important to note one particular question. The question being, please indicate your top 3 priorities you think Union Township should work on improving in 2023. And here you're going to see our top 5 answers as of 2-ish this afternoon. Those are the removal of blight or problem properties, economic development restaurants, transportation, bike paths and sidewalks, paving, and economic development for jobs. So encourage everyone, please, to go out and take the survey and let us know what you think. There's places to leave comments in different questions, and really take some time to tell us. I look at all of them as they come in, and we'll do some deep dive as we get a little bit closer to the end date as to what the data is telling us and what we should be doing. But wanted to point out those quick things in our first 100 answers and what jumps out as the priorities. And that concludes my remarks, and I think will take us to public comment.
Great, thank you, Ms. Ayers. So, yeah, Mr. Campbell, would you mind going and see if there's any? So at this time, we'll take any public comments. Just make sure to fill out a card so we get your information. And, you know, it's open for discussion. We'll basically try to stay on a point of topic of anything that you'd like to see in the township, any goals, anything you'd like us to try to achieve. That's our job, is to try to do what's best for Union Township. So we'll go ahead, just the one? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ron.
And Mr. Dills, I think we're having some technical difficulty on the timer, so I will keep track on my phone
Oh,
in
that's
5
okay.
minutes.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, perfect. Mr. DeWitt, come on up. Love to hear from you. And then obviously, please state your address for the record, please.
Melvin DeWitt, 3902 Banks Road, Union Township, Ohio.
Good to see
Okay.
you.
I wanted to comment on a couple of things. One, I did hear about that there's some concern about using volunteers within the township, and I think that's a very good idea that definitely needs looking at. I think there's people that would do things if they knew that there was something for them to do, okay, and do it very well. Then on the kayak ramp, kayakers and canoeists don't need that much in the way of docking. Probably a beach and access to that beach with parking naturally is about all that they would need. I talk of experiences being a long-time canoeist, and a little bit of kayaking. And let's see, okay. As you have been working on with the computer site, oh boy, a mess.
Yeah.
Website.
All I'm doing is emphasizing it more than you have. And let's see, that's basically what I had to just kind of emphasize more than anything else.
Hopefully, we're gonna have that new website up the first week in May, first week to middle of May.
Let's put it this way, that would be late. And I'm not trying to say that you're not doing your job, okay?
Well said.
Any of
Yep.
you,
Yep.
okay?
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Mr.
Thank you, sir.
DeWitt. And
Thank you very much.
love the idea of volunteers, and I couldn't, I think all of us up here, and most likely everyone in this room, whoever's visited our website, it's old, it's outdated, it's difficult to navigate, and for us being, you know, this is Union Township. we should be spearheading Clermont County, and we are not. We are falling short on the website. Website's getting a complete overhaul, and I agree with Mr. DeWitt. Hopefully it gets done sooner rather than later. As far as kayakers and canoes, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Ayers. So when we're talking about the canoers and kayakers docking docking them, we have to partner and agree with the Army Corps of Engineers. Everything has to be natural, is that correct, on the river there?
So there is some standards for what you have to have and what you need for safety standards. There's also some, if we decide that's an area we want to go, there is some grants through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources that
Excellent.
we could apply for, and they have some standards that say this is what they're looking for. So if we want to go that direction, we would engage in a firm to help us design the best location, what we believe we need, and then we'd work with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, who then works in turn with the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure it's appropriate, and that it's going to be safe and what's necessary for the kayakers and canoeists.
Excellent. Mr. DeWitt, I did not know, oh yeah, please.
Okay, one idea that just popped in my head, you might want to coordinate with Tavy so that you have an input site and a takeout site.
That's, yeah, it seems obvious, but yes, yeah, you're absolutely right, yeah. That'd be kind of funny if you don't know where to get off once you get on, so, yeah, well said.
And Clermont County Park District maintains a map of all the
Yeah.
kayak and canoe launches in the county, so it would give people a map of,
Yeah.
hey, here's where some options are, and here's where you could go in and go out.
Yeah.
Just promoting the township as a potential site for that.
Loveland seems to have a great system. My daughter and family live up there, on the Atlantic, I guess a little Atlantic.
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't know, maybe that'd be something, there's a lot of rentals right there.
there is. Yeah, so the only part of the river that's on Union Township is down by Round Bottom there on Route 50. But we don't have anything. But Mr. DeWitt, I did not know that you were a canoe or kayaker. I learned that. So I'm a river rat. I love the water. I'm always there, always, especially during the summer. I'm always there. So it's exciting. Hopefully we can get something done. And no, I think we are going to get something done and get the ball rolling there. So
I used to race, but I haven't for a long time.
get out of here. Get out of here. One of my favorite races I ever competed in was called the Little Miami Triathlon up in Lebanon, I believe. And it's a team event. You have a partner, you do 6 miles of canoeing, and then you run 6 miles, and you bike 18 miles. One of the funnest ones ever, but the canoeing part was awesome. It was fun. So, but yeah. Last chance. Did anybody else want to fill out a card and come up and speak? Ms. DeWitt, he's pointing at you.
Come on up, Jim.
Well, I'm going to assume I kind of have your information since it's your husband that spoke. So you come on up. Come on, please. And then just for the record, would you state your address even though it's already the same?
Sure.
Please.
Hi. Jude DeWitt, 3902 Banks Road, Union Township.
Yes, ma'am.
I was thinking about the signage and it being pretty much the same, the brand. And I was also remembering that we put, I don't know that we put in it, somebody put in the new signage for Union Township down by the 275. When we had it before, we had flags on the signage. And
Good
I
point.
know that was mentioned as a priority in the parks to make sure that the parks all had flags. And I was wondering if we could also add a flag to the, a United States flag to the signs welcoming people to Union Township. It's just-
Don't they have to be lit up at night?
Yeah,
The
but there's
problem, the problem we run into there is that we don't control particularly where that signage is because of ODOT, but I'll be happy to take a look at the regulations around that and see what we would need to do. It's a good suggestion, but there are some rules outside of our control.
I understand.
Yeah,
But
we can take a look at it.
But if that is a possibility, I may be able to get some donated for you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay.
DeWitt, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mrs. DeWitt.
And, that Beachmont exit is, go ahead. You're going to say something?
I'd like to, since you're gonna talk about that exit, I'd like to share something just for your, both of your knowledge too.
Sure.
So as she references, that is a newer sign there. And, you know, for no, I guess, for no real specifics, but the first time I saw the sign itself installed or any concept of a design or color scheme with it was when Anderson Township trustee Josh Girth sent me a picture message of it and said, new sign, like it. And I was like, oh, there's a color change. And so anyway, I kind of backed into that. It was something that wasn't necessarily brought through a forum of the board having a discussion like this on branding and placemaking and having some community feedback, because I have heard that from some residents. I said, how's that, you know, new color? How, you know, they recognized it was different. And I frankly didn't have any answer for them because it was something that was not brought to kind of a board consideration or deliberation on. So just a piece of information that I think it's a you know, significant benefit to be able to do what we're doing here tonight. And I've been excited about being able to take these type of steps for a board working session, to have those type of discussions and get the prioritization set out for Miss Ayers. So before we went into the Beachmont, you know, exit discussion there and the signage, just wanted you to have that piece of information that probably would be new to you, because I don't think that that's too much of a widely publicly known detail as far as that sign just appeared in the month of December before you guys took office. And there was no discussion really that brought it to, you know, the board or presentation. I'm seeing Ms. DeWitt shaking her head up and down, and people there that you probably felt surprised when you saw it all of a sudden. And you guys pay attention. I mean, Mr. Wing, you sit through every meeting just about, and you probably felt surprised. So you weren't the only ones. So, all right.
It was good, and I think, I was gonna say that exit's kind of the gateway, that and 32, to the rest of the county. And as far as me, I think we need to make it loud and clear that we're very patriotic, and I think not only, you know, our American flag, but also our 4 branches of military, 5 or 6 if you count Coast Guard and Space Force. But, so with that, Ms. Ayers, yeah, please check into that, and if it can get done, let's get it done ASAP. I like it, so. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close it for public comments, and, oh, I'm sorry, my apologies, I'm sorry, please, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
I just made it up, so.
That's okay, that's okay.
My name's Charles Raming. I live at 554 Brantner. I was up here a while back addressing sidewalks, and since that time, I've done a little research on my own. I did talk to the county planning department, and I also had an interesting discussion with Anderson Township and their planning department. And, you know, when you talk about these goals and objectives, and you know, there's a big part in there with sidewalks and pedestrian and bikeways and so forth. Anderson Township actually, in the late 90s, developed a plan for, I think it's called their bikeway and walkway plan. And I think you've mentioned we had some sidewalks, I guess, are going by the high school, and I believe there's some sidewalks going by one of the elementaries, to Summerside, I think, has some sidewalks being done. Mm-hmm. And I think it probably behooves us as a township maybe to really kind of look at sitting down and making a focused plan. They have a system where they weight the sidewalk, and they have them, so they're basically then listed in high priorities. And I think, you know, as we go forward, if we're just looking at sort of throwing, you know, a sidewalk up against the wall here, and we throw one up against the wall there, we have to deal with the county, because I think most of the sidewalks that we're really dealing with are on county roads. I think, in talking with the folks at Anderson Township, they've been down this road for 20-some years, and they said it's a difficult process. But if you look at a lot of our township streets, people are able to negotiate those. You can walk on most of the streets there, but when you get out on the county streets, that's when you run into problems. So I think maybe we should look at possibly trying to formulate a plan that we can work with the county, and I think we are the largest township by far in the county. I think we could carry some more weight if we had something to present to them that said, this is how we look at our situation. Here's our priorities in sidewalks. And I think that would go a long way towards facilitating that process.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, gentlemen, on that note, and Mr. Chairman, I know we're going to get to board comment in a second, but on that note, you know, speaks to me how Mr. McCormick has already been kind of prioritizing or trying to task that as an intern and project to be sidewalk mapping through the township. And the way he relates that, to me, sounds very similar to, like the road study we just paid for to do the PCI testing that's going to basically assign the weighting and the average of what road needs new paving the most. And that's kind of what I hear out of Mr. Charles there, so.
Thank you,
thanks.
Mr. Lee. Okay, so at this time, we'll do board comments, basically on our goals and priorities for this year and for the years to come. I'll let you two gentlemen go first. Mr. Becker, go ahead.
Okay, so considering the list Ms. Ayers went over and explained, and I've been kind of thinking about this for a while and thinking it through, just sitting here this evening as well. And so a number of thoughts came to mind. And sometimes it takes me a while to figure out how to articulate what's going on in my brain. So I guess what I'm hearing from people, and I'm thinking of my own experiences. So what's the number one thing you see every day or experience every day? It's every day you leave your house, it's the roads. So whether you're hitting the same pothole going up the street, or maybe a road needs to be restriped, Rumpke comes to mind. We hear complaints about paving, how come that road got paved and mine didn't? I think my street, I don't think it's been paved over 30 years. They fill potholes periodically. I'd hit to rank paving as really the number one priority that I would place. Another, I got actually two others I would put in the number one category. Going down the list, and it's also, again, so what do you see if you leave your house and you're driving around? What bothers you? Trash. Whether it's on the expressway, on Old 74, around Office Max. It gets worse over time unless somebody cleans it up, but obviously it doesn't clean itself up. So the beautification section specifically getting rid of trash. It's something I've thought of, and it's been mentioned before. Like Mel, you mentioned about volunteers and, having like a trash pickup day or something. I really don't like the idea of that, just because to me it strikes me as dangerous. I don't want to see anybody get, killed working next to a road. If it's in the parks or something where it's safe, that's fine, but not on the highways. I don't want to see anybody take that risk. I understand, like, the municipal court does it, but they're kind of trained for that, and it's part of their community service where, it beats jail time, so I don't have an issue with that. So number three, then, and these aren't ranked in a particular order, but I would just say the third one I would call top priority. And again, it gets back to, what do I hear complaints about? What do you see every day? What are the issues? Well, that's Eastgate Mall. And, we've talked about that. We're doing what we can on that. There's a lot of hoops to jump through with that. There's a lot of, hurdles, having to do with multiple owners and the old contracts that are still in place and will be for who knows how long. And, Kroger is in the process of jumping through those hoops to get that marketplace built where the Sears store is. So my understanding, that's still not a done deal, and I anticipate it will be, but they're still working through that. And then lesser priorities. You mentioned cemetery fees. That's something that I guess I discovered a year ago, that we're losing money on the cemetery, which means the taxpayers are subsidizing the cemetery. So to adjust those fees, I'd like to, I think I'd like to see that get done this year. And then the lower priority things, a couple come to mind. One of which would be, I've mentioned in the past about kind of slowly transitioning our vehicle fleet to fully electric. So they're not ready for prime time yet, and I'm not suggesting it for police cars or fire trucks, because they have to be, the police cars have to be what's called performance rated, speed rated.
Chase rated.
What is it?
Chase rated.
Chase rated. So I don't know that they make one yet that's chase rated, but we have a number of other vehicles that aren't for pursuit. I think the word's pursuit rated. And the reason I just said they're not ready for prime time, it's not like you can drive down to Beachmont Ford and you got half a dozen electric cars to choose from. That's just not the case yet. It probably won't be this year. but it will be in our future. And I'm a believer in those from just an economic standpoint. You know, your fueling cost is a whole lot less, your maintenance cost is a whole lot less. The biggest downside with electric vehicles is range and how long it takes to refuel. Well, that's not an issue. Neither one of those is an issue for us because we can always plug it into a 220 line, it charges overnight, and these cars don't leave Union Township, except for an occasional trip to Columbus or wherever they go, and that can be managed. So I would like to see that, that transition occur. Grant opportunities came up, you know, where we have, you know, when the grants are available to do something, like, you know, with the sidewalk grant and such, you know, to grab onto that, you know, when money becomes available for a specific project, and I call that kind of low-hanging fruit, then something that would make something more of a priority is because the opportunity presented itself. And also, you mentioned branding. I'll tell you what came to mind, and this is the last thing I have. And this is kind of minor, but it was President's Day. I was in the building, and the building was closed. And as I approached the front door, there was a package that was just sitting there leaning against the door. So I picked it up, I looked at the name. I didn't recognize the name, but the address, 4350 Colts Road. I was thinking, 4350, is that this building? Don't have the address memorized, and so I'm looking around. I don't see an address on a sign on the building. I don't see the number 4350 at all. I had to check my business card to make sure this is 4350. So I'm thinking maybe some big numbers on the top of the building, say 4350. You know, if somebody's making a delivery and, you know, if they know what address it is. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my thoughts.
Mr. Becker, a lot of good points. A lot of good points. Thank you, sir. Mr. Logue?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I want us to either have opportunity to hear your thoughts as well, Mr. Chairman. You know, obviously paving, to me, paving is something that you have to prioritize, because, I mean, coming into office and being 1 mile on average per year for 133 center lane road miles, that's not gonna work. That's a lot of potholes, and road repair to fix. So, and the residents, you know, they obviously they speak up, they want more. So I think it's been great that we've taken strides to this year, you know, about quadruple what the increases have been from 1 mile a year to be just under 5 miles. You know, but it sounds like there's still much more to go. You know, if that's on a pavement schedule, you know, what's the right number there between 25-year cycle, 17-year cycle, or 13-year cycle? So I think one, we're going to find out more when we get this PCI test done. So from an aspect of prioritizing, I feel like we've taken some of the professional steps that we need to take to allocate $35,000 towards that test. That's going to give us much more data. I don't know if you guys have talked with the service director, Matt Taylor, about this, but they actually drive and record every road. They do GIS data on it. They rack and stack, you know, what the remaining life is and what your highest priority roads are. And then obviously we got to take into account trip counts and the main thoroughfares, because that's something, you know, you put new pavement down on a stub street that has 6 houses on it, that's a cost where that could be going on a main thoroughfare somewhere where that's being foregone. So, so those are all good things to consider. But I think what that really comes down to, and Ms. Ayers, you know, correct me if I'm, you know, not mistaken by stating this. I mean, you know, when we do the collaborative buy now with the county, that's a main thing that we're getting done, because we're going to be able to pave more roads for less. And then if we allocate, you know, for the study, so we know which roads that need to get done, that's a significant thing. And then when we budget for that and do a capital budget to plan for it, I mean, those are all top priority things that, is that taking a lot of our human capital and resources at the end of the day, or the residents just getting better roads? Now we're making a commitment on the budget for it, but I mean.
Yeah, I think what those items get you to get, you know, when you take them together, is the ability to quickly analyze what needs to get done. I am a big proponent of the PCI testing, and I pushed the service department to get into that, and they were excited about it, because, you know, we have to know what the status of the roads are. Everyone is concerned about the roads they drive on. You know, all of us in this room and watching at home are concerned about the roads. But really being able to go out to the experts and say, what's the useful life left on roads? What do we need to be doing to address the worst problems first? And it gives us that threshold that we really need. And then the idea here is, as we have extra dollars and things, if we want to prioritize this as our top priority, then, then we allocate dollars. We're going to do what we can to allocate a number of dollars possible and get it done. But, we've taken the steps so far to, I think, adequately assess where we are, and then as we decide where we want to prioritize it, we're ready to go slot new roads in as quickly as possible.
And so as that can be identified, I think I would asterisk that, it's in a higher category, right? So from that aspect, it's like a caveat. Are we on the same page? That's a high priority item, but at the same rate, we know it's not necessarily a huge undertaking of the staff. It's just we're giving them more resources to deliver for the citizens. Removing blight, I saw was one of the top items from the community. That right there to me identifies as something that might be more significant on senior leadership of administration, yourself, police, if fire's involved on that, our law department, our legal, our economic and development directors. So, really, that to me is something that drives. There may not be a significant upfront cost with any of that, but it's going to be a time constraint, kind of my thought. So again, to prioritize, but I think that's what the residents are looking for. So that might be one of those categories where the resources are higher on the human capital cost, but you're able to be taking care of a couple things that the residents are significantly wanting. Same kind of goes for economic development and restaurants. It's being proactive, right, Ms. Ayers, as far as targeting, who are we wanting to target? What are we hearing feedback from the residents on? Everyone, I don't want to go down the rumor mill of, things people have talked about, oh, this is coming and this is coming. You've heard that for years. I want us to deliver, so with that, how we prioritize human capital and resources there, and that can be the direct to type of pursuit to go out there and be proactive and get it. But that could also be, the effectiveness of a marketing and collateral type of package that really markets Union Township as a place that a business or these specific restaurants would want to invest their dollars in, and here's why. You're in sales, what I would be referencing with that. You need these businesses to recognize what is Union Township. I was talking with the restaurateur over the weekend, and they want to significantly expand in suburban areas, and I've been telling them about Union Township for several months now. And he finally said to me, he's like, I don't know what Union Township is. Like, we gotta go look at this on a map. I'm like, yeah, let me show you on the map. But I would like, what would be nice is to be able to say, here's the marketing collateral that's already developed. So that might be something that, Ms. Ayers is a resource that's brought to them. But I think that lines up with what I saw as the number 2 item there for what the residents were interested in from the initial survey results. And then, yeah, agree with the sidewalk, the hike and bike connectivity, to be researching that. Last year, and in the fall of last year, I was saying that'd be kind of my pie in the sky that I wouldn't really want to advertise much, is if we could have a hike bike connectivity from Union Township through connecting to the bike trail that goes, from Cincinnati to Cleveland, and Union Township could be a main artery, maybe along the river area there that we're talking about, back towards Batavia. And connect to Williamsburg. That'd be phenomenal to open things up, but that's a 10, 20, that's a long-range plan. Nothing to make a direct commitment on other than let's at least be maybe on the same page to research that and see where there's some potentials and be at least forward-thinking of that. But in the near term, the sidewalk plotting, I think, is what makes significant sense. I think we're taking those steps right now with what we just pursued at our last trustee meeting for Summerside Elementary and looking to connect sidewalks there around Klepper. So I think the more that we continue on that, out of Mark McCormick's office would be beneficial. And then just closing out the 5th item that residents were indicating, the economic development and jobs. I think it's the same type of aspect. It might go hand in hand with an economic development kind of marketing type of collateral or package that you're able to broadcast a little bit more. As far as, if you go on Ready Cincinnati, that's an interesting site. You can pull demographics on Union Township, and it can pull, it's a significant start on that type of marketing collateral, because that's what Regional Economic Development Initiative, Ready Cincinnati, is kind of what they're there for, to be a partner with. And, you know, they've been instrumental. What was that briefing we had at the beginning of last year? They've put about $20 million, I believe, towards the incentive structures for TQL. So, you know, it's phenomenal for TQL to be here and growing, but that doesn't just happen on its own. And there's regional partners like Ready Cincinnati that have significant skin in the game well before it gets to come to us for any type of plan or approval. So anyway, I think the more that we get on the front edge and be proactive with that and encourage, just being proactive to pursue the interests that the residents want, is where we'll get our good return on the taxpayers' funds. So, Mr. Chairman, do you have any comments?
I do. Both good stuff, from both of you, very much. So, top two for me, that I want to see get started on and finished before my first term is up, which would be 2025. No order, but my absolute top two that I would love to see for Union Township, Eastgate area, one is Veterans Park, the helicopter park. I want to see it completely revamped and redone. I'm there, I see it, I touch it, my kids are there all the time. And it's not a bad park, but it's not leading the way in Clermont County. And there's a lot of other parks that surround us that are a lot better, and that park is one of the most visited ones in Clermont County. I want to see it completely redone, and I think the residents would love it. Now, with that, you know, there's other townships in the area, and they have a parks levy. And in 2020, we were hit very hard, very hard. Number one, 2020 was COVID. People lost their jobs, people lost their businesses, people were tight, you couldn't go anywhere, money was tight, laying off jobs. There was that. There was also the auditor doing their 6-year re-up on all of our evaluations, and so property taxes went up automatically because of that. And then there was Union Township specifically, we had a police levy, we had a fire levy, and we had a school levy. All hit us in 2020. And so personally, just a personal goal of mine, I'm, you know, when Donald Trump first took office, first thing he did to all of his departments was says, cut your department by 5%. Make it happen. Find a way to make it happen. So in my first term, I've pledged absolutely no new taxes. I will not do it. I mean, unless it is like stuff hits the fan, I have no choice. I don't want to see a new tax for the people of Union Township because 2020 we were all hit very hard. So with that, we don't have a parks levy. So where does the money come from to take care of our parks? It comes out of our general fund, which funds everything, our police, our fire, our parks, roads. I'd like to be creative with that. And I don't think the residents would mind if we co-brand. What do I mean by that is either A, we put some money towards it, or B, a business pays for it all. I'm okay with public-private partnership to co-brand it. If we can co-brand and collaborate with a business, and what I would like to see is a turf football soccer field. I like the playground's got to go. I want the mulch out of there. I want they call it I forget the name of the rubber turf thing that the kids can play on. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, Forever, what's it called?
Forever Turf.
Forever Turf, thank you. I'd like to see that, the playground completely redone. The basketball courts haven't been paved in years. There's not really much nature scene. Maybe we can put up just ideas I'm thinking of, but I would not mind in putting up, and then whatever business puts up half the bill or the whole bill, we give them a ton of signage. But give them a fat sign there in the middle of the football field, give them monument signs out by Clough and Glen Estee Withamsville. I don't mind doing that. So that's how we can offset getting a parks levy, is things like that. So that's one of my priorities, and I'm absolutely determined by the end of my first term to get that done, to get a deal done at least. And then the second one is, I have heard this so many times, and so the number one response I get besides paving is we're tired of the same old fast food restaurants and the same old franchise restaurants. We want a cool brewery, restaurant type of thing to come in. And you know what I see is I'm a competitive guy, and call a spade a spade. Downtown Milford it's happening. They just put a brand-new brewery in. It looks awesome. They got Little Miami Brewery right there. Now they do have the river. That helps. We don't really have that here except for on Round Bottom, but I want a really cool destination-style, non-fast food restaurant to come in here. And we do have a couple, but not one that's mind-blowing. And so top two that I'd like to see happen before my first term is up is those two. And then a few more items I have that are definitely higher priority, but those two are my absolute top priority. If I didn't do anything else in office, I would really like to get those two done. John, correct me if I'm, oh, sorry, Mr. Becker, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe our cemetery plot to buy a plot is $750. Is that correct?
I don't know.
I
Mr.
think
Campbell?
it's actually a little bit lower.
700?
For a
somewhere there.
resident.
For a resident.
Resident.
Correct. So if you want I believe a plot at Mount Moriah is $700 or $750.
So I think it's 750.
And I was blown away when I was told that number, because I thought it would have been, I don't know, 2,000,
1750.
2,500, I don't know. So, and it has never been raised, from my understanding.
Been a benefit to the taxpayers.
So I get it, but like John says, is
I
that
agree,
the
I agree.
taxpayers are subsidized
Should be
that because our
easy.
service department still has to service it, which this comes from
Should be easy.
taxpayer money. So, I'm absolutely in favor. I think that's and I don't think anyone would have any opposition us raising the price slightly, to do, I don't think that, I would not have a problem.
I
with
don't
that.
know what we consider slight, because I think it's significantly under what it should be. It should
Well-
be about double.
So what,
So
what
that-
we would do if we want to prioritize this, I'm sorry, if I
No,
may.
please, please.
I think there's two things we really need to look at when we look at the cemetery. The first is, we have had a very good business with the columbariums and that type of burial. And I think there's some interest in that in the scatter garden and making sure we're making the right mix of uses there, and the columbariums and alternative burial sites can prove to be very effective for us in reducing some of the subsidies. And then we would look at doing a survey of the local cemetery fees to make sure that we are in the line or fairly represented for local cemeteries, so that we are addressing the fees in the way that the marketplace is addressing the fees as well.
Yeah, I just on a personal level,
Yeah.
if I was to go buy a plot, I think 750 is kind of low. And if our township is losing money on the cemetery, I think the residents would understand. If it's been the same price for 20-plus years, my goodness, inflation goes up, they're not making any more dirt land, we gotta buy more land next to Lowe's for Mount Moriah to expand. Talk it over with Mr. Taylor, but I have no
Sure.
problem with, if you wanna raise the
Sure.
prices there. As far as paving, yeah, I get it's top priority, but we don't have a roads levy. I mean, our hands are kind of tied. I mean, labor has gone up, and materials have gone up. Inflation's gone up. Gotta love President Biden and the job he's doing with inflation. So I don't know what else to say with that. We have so much money to allocate towards it, and we do not have a roads levy. Miami Township has a roads levy. Anderson does. I'm not putting more taxes on our taxpayers. Ain't gonna happen. It's not my first term. Unless we hit a code red scenario, I'm not doing it. So my hands are kind of tied with paving, as far as the roads. I completely agree. Now, Charles, is it Ramirez? What's your last name, Charles?
Raymond.
Raymond? Okay, Raymond, I just wanted to, okay, so Mr. Raymond, I agree with you. We need a plan. I don't want to just be throwing up sidewalk after sidewalk. I do want to have an emphasis, if, Ms. Ayers, if I had a choice to start with our high school, which we are doing, and expand from there, reason being is because the schools are suffering. They don't have any bus service for the high schoolers, and so a lot of those kids have to walk. And so I would like to, if we were to start anywhere, I would say we got to keep going from the high school and expand out. I know, Clough Pike all the way to Veterans Park on down, it's dangerous. You can't walk there. And then they've got the trench there that these kids have to walk in. So, but as far as, but I agree with the sidewalk plan completely, so.
Part of the reason the sidewalks have been prioritized by the school is actually because the funding is easier to find. There
Great.
is a lot of alternative funding for safe routes to schools and those grant programs. So we've started there because there's some alternative ways to fund it.
Excellent. Yeah, beautiful. And
Yeah.
so it works out. That's where I'd like to start with anyways. It's funny, so the township and branding. I had an idea and it kind of got shot down, and a lot of residents shot my idea down. I'm still all for it. I would be all in for it. But my job is to do what the residents want and not what I want necessarily. So
Dillon's Township.
I serve once a month up at Wright-Patterson up at the Air Force, and guys will say, hey, Dills, where do you live at? Cincinnati. Well, what part of Cincinnati? Union Township. Where's Union Township? Eastgate. Oh, I know where Eastgate's at. Everyone knows, if I'm in downtown, Hey, what part of town do you live in? I say Eastgate because no one knows where Union Township is at. That's the brand. And so let's rebrand this Eastgate Township. That was my thought. I wanted to do that, but the feedback I got was, no, it's been Union Township forever. We're not changing. I'm like, does anybody really know this as Union Township? If you go to the west side or Westchester or Kentucky, no, they know it as Eastgate. So it's not top priority. That's more of a lower priority. But for example, one of the most famous changes that all of you know, or if in case you didn't know, used to be known as Union Township, is now known as Westchester. They used to be a Union Township, and they rebranded it as Westchester. So it does work. It can happen. But my idea got shot down by residents, and I'm like, okay, it's not a top priority. I don't care. We'll go on. But I'm in favor of that if we ever decided to rebrand as Eastgate Township of some sort. But
Could be Jungle Jim's.
if Jungle Jim's Township, I'm sure he would like that. Yeah.
Another jungle gym location.
But I could not agree with Mrs. DeWitt more. I want to make it annoyingly obnoxious that this is a pro-patriot, pro-military county, and I don't want to hide that. So anywhere we could put up flags, Miss Ayers, you don't even have to ask me, just get it done. So I completely agree with that. But the art and murals, I didn't even think about that. You brought it up. As a father, it kills me a little bit. My 13-year-old is very tall, 5'8", 5'9"-ish, and she's still growing. She's left-handed. She won't play volleyball. She won't play soccer anymore. She won't do softball. And all the teachers and the coaches are begging because she's left-handed to play, and she won't. She's into theater. She's into arts. She's into music, and I'm like, I don't know anything about that. All I can do is tell you good job and keep going and work hard. I can't coach her at all any of this stuff. But when I saw that, I'm like, oh, my daughter would absolutely fall in love with a big fat mural in Union Township. So I would like, again, kind of like my parks idea, I'd like to partner. I don't mind putting up some of the money, but maybe if we can partner with any arts organization. Again, I'm a sports guy, not an arts guy, so I couldn't tell you what to do there. But I know that there are a lot of people that are, and that would be appreciative and good thinking. Mr. Wing, it would have to be high. I hate tigers. I can't stand it, and so, yeah, so it'd have to be higher. But I'm for it. I got two more items, gentlemen, and then they're both kind of passionate. I'm going to say they're right below my top two. This one is Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel, I feel like those folks feel like they're forgotten, and I hate that because they're not. We have our administrator. She's our CEO of the township, if you will, and I put my trust and faith in her, and we've talked several times, and I know it's a priority. I'm open. I don't know what to do. I would be open to, similar to a downtown Milford style, do we make it a Dora district? Would that help it? Or not? Again, I'm open. But I just want Mount Carmel residents to know it's on our radar. We've talked about it. We want to see it, because there's so many nice homes and residents there, but it's right there. It's just falling apart in the business district. Do we help and partner with? I'm all about restaurants and breweries in that area. Would that help? I'm open, but I just want folks to know. And actually, from you two, if you want to talk again afterwards, to talk publicly, if you guys have any ideas as well. But we can't let Mount Carmel fall off our radar, and it's got to be one of our higher priorities. It has to be. We can't let those folks down. Dilapidated, junky, blighted properties. There's a specific area I'm thinking of, and a lot of our police are absolutely wasting their time. And I'm actually getting pretty fired up about it. I'm talking more as a resident than I am as a trustee, but drugs, arrests, prostitution, garbage, filth, and it's in our backyard. And I'm sick of it. And so, and shame on any business owner that is not a partner and not a neighbor in this community, in this neighborhood. Because there's some businesses in our township, if I could just wave a magic wand and make them go away, I'd rather have blank land there than have them there and collect property tax. I'd rather them just go away. And so I don't need to say them specifically. I don't want to necessarily do that. But there is some some businesses here that need to do better, because if not, if we have any say, man, they better get on their horse, or else we will for them. And it's absolute garbage, and I hate that and I hate that it spills over, because then you have residents and apartment complexes and such that live in those around the area, and it's not their fault that the crime has to spill over, and we're wasting our police dollars and money and manpower and efforts on these places, and it's absolutely disgusting, and I want it to go away. I want it to go away right now. So, but with that, talking about police and fire and EMS, positively, I have never, we get pothole complaints, paving complaints, bringing more restaurant complaints. I have never got a complaint on timing, a response time. So I wish our police and fire chief were here so they can hear what I have to say, but no one has ever, I've never got a complaint, someone was breaking into my car, breaking into my house, and the police didn't show up on time. My mother, my grandmother, my whatever was heart attack, health issues, and the EMS did not show up on time. I've never heard a complaint from that. And so our leadership and those two teams are doing an excellent, fine job. But I just want the residents to know that Mount Carmel is definitely on our radar. I'm open to ideas and suggestions, and we got to do something. And even with, gentlemen, I would even be okay with throwing some of the ARPA money at Mount Carmel, if that'll help, if that'll entice businesses to come in and redo that whole area over there. I'm open. I don't have the answer to everything, but I'm open, and I'd like to see Mount Carmel be revamped. I know it's not going to happen overnight. It's a year's process that'll be much longer than when we were still sitting here. But we got to at least get the ball rolling with that. And then those businesses, those business owners, and those management with those businesses, they're disappointing, and I don't want them here, and they don't belong here. So that's all I got to say about that. Gentlemen, did you have any last final comments? And then if not, we can wrap up. Please, yeah, yeah. It's okay. No, please come on up. Yeah, I'll open it up for public comments here. Yeah, go ahead. And just state your name and address real quick if you could.
A little slow getting up.
Now, do you need us to get back with you? Because if so, I would need you to fill out one of these.
Yes, I'll fill one of those.
You got his information?
I've got his.
Oh, great, okay.
In fact, I've talked to her twice now.
We
My
chatted
wife
before
and
the
I.
meeting.
Please,
sir.
yeah.
Mount Carmel, I'm sorry, is it Mount Carmel? There's two questions. The newest subdivision is supposed to be being put in. We're at 1153 Chestnut Court. Commons to East Gate. All right,
Glen Estee.
you
You're
guys,
talking about the Glen Estee property?
Glen Estee Development.
Oh, okay, yeah.
they came in and cleaned out that whole wooded area, and they stopped. They took our fence line of trees and trees and trees, and it's grown there for years, and they took them out. Now we hear every bit of the noise off of the road. It gets very annoying. Sometimes when fire engines go through or a police car goes through, you can forget about your TV sound because it's gone. What we like to do is, like to see, not like to do, like to see, is to go ahead and replace some kind of barrier to keep the sound down. New trees, bigger trees, wooden fence line, anything you can think of that would cut some of that noise down until they decide what in the heck they're going to do with it, because I understand the building part of that over there is stopped, according to the guy that was running the trailer that's head of the construction. Arrogant, that's Mr. Arrogant as far as I'm concerned. He sits there and he tells us that everything's going to be going on and there'll be houses being popped up and we'd like to know what you'd like to have, and we set a barrier and that got fluffed off, and now we find out you're not going to build anything over there right now for some time. And then, this is according to him. And then also, they are thinking about building lower income housing where the school used to be. And so with that thought in mind, we've already moved ourselves from a wonderful neighborhood into something that's very questionable now to us. Now, I'm 80 years old, so I don't know how many more years of this old clock's going to tick. But if I live a long time to 100, it's going to get noisier and noisier and noisier. And we just like somebody to put some barriers up so we can have peace and quiet again.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
I thank you, gentlemen.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
So it's not, I mean, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but the folks that own the Echelon Apartments, right there, they're the ones building, correct? And so these are luxury apartments, these aren't lower income.
PBL.
So it's technically, there's a conglomerate of groups that are working on developing that property. And I've talked to the Austins briefly. What happened is that the first thing they need to go in and do is actually drop sanitary sewer and some utilities to the site. And so unfortunately, in order to do that, they do have to clear vegetation. They will put the sewers in, put the ground back, the infrastructure, and then as they finish building, they will rebuild the tree line. Now, that's not an immediate resolution to their concern, but it is a long-term process. So I've been aware and working with the developers to try and save as many trees as possible, but unfortunately, where the sewer lines go, ultimately, they do need to clear. And then we've talked to them about what they're gonna put back there and make sure that they're rebuilding and being responsible about rebuilding that wooded area as they finish. And then I had indicated to Mr. Austin and his wife that we would get an update from the developer. I will call them tomorrow and get an update on when they can expect construction and what they can do. I don't know if we're gonna be able to immediately address the Austin's concerns, but we'll certainly work with the developer to address it the best we can. There's some other fencing in that neighborhood, but that was put up by the private neighborhood, not by the government entity. So we will work with the developer and I'll help address some of their questions as soon as we can. It just may not be an immediate resolution.
And the
Thank
other,
you, Ms. Ayers.
the other thing, I mean, we got our condo so that we could walk off the porch and be standing looking at trees. Then when this all happened, then we know people on the street behind us, and come to find out that as we were talking, they're going through with a plow, knocking everything down with almost within one woman's on her deck. In fact, she was so upset she came out in the middle of the street crying. Another gentleman, he's a golfer, we talk to him quite frequently, and he had the same thing. You walk out in his backyard, they had a nice little place for them, the two of them to sit and enjoy their evening, have a cocktail. It's all gone now. So I don't see people there building this going to do anything to help us. So we only can rely on you to do something about having some kind of barrier put up around us so we don't have to wait. How many years would it take to build those houses if they ever get started? 5 years?
Yeah, good point. So, I know the previous board was in a tough position because the former Glen Estee site. There was rumors of a Costco going there, there's rumors of, obviously, the apartments that are there now, there was, you had all these, Menards, heard that around as well. And if they put the Costco there, maybe folks are gonna be upset that there's not enough housing for Union Township. If you put the housing up, the folks are gonna be, well, we need a Costco, we need a Menards, whatever. So I know no matter what, they were faced a tough decision, they made that decision, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, I understand, but I think regardless of the decision, because the deal was made on that property was a land swap with the schools, and the schools had to be made whole. And so the property tax, a good chunk of that goes back to the schools. So I'm not faulting the previous board. We didn't vote on that up here, we did not. But I think it's gonna be a good thing at the end of the day. I hope, I mean, obviously I hope the residents, because we have 50,000 residents here. They need a place to live. Now, I will say this, since I've been in office and since John's been in office, we have not voted on any multifamily apartment buildings up here. Not once, we have not. We've kind of pumped the brakes on them. I'm not saying they're good, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying we've pumped the brakes because the residents are saying, hey, enough of the apartment buildings. We pumped the brakes. I do think that this build will be a good build. I do. And I remember the owner, Ms. Ayers, when he came here, I mean, he unless he just blowing smoke, but he sounded like he was very open and was willing to take our phone calls and help the best he can and be a community partner, because he did a good job with the apartments across the way there. So I think what I would say is Ms. Ayers is very good at doing her job, and I would say let her get in contact with the builders, see if we can do something to help. What you're saying, what I hear is the noise, putting a barrier up. I can't do much about the scenery, and I'm sorry. But I think no matter what went there, though, you know, a big build, a Costco, a Menards, in this case it's the apartment buildings, it was, they have to build. I don't know what else to say. It's their land now. So, but I hear your absolute concern, and I know Ms. Ayers, she's good at getting on top of things. I know she'll do her best to get on top of it. I know she will. I hear you loud and clear, I do. I'm sorry you're having it happen, but
Well, as everybody knows.
roger that, yes, sir. I hear you loud and clear.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Austin.
it. Yeah, thank you. The, gentlemen, do you have anything you want to talk about as far as any more goals or follow-ups at all? Please, yeah, whoever.
Do you want to go ahead and then I'll
Sure.
follow up?
Yeah, so both of you mentioned, made a number of good comments. I just wanted to zero in on one of them you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, about Mount Carmel. I'm glad you said that. And I guess in terms of complexity, making things happen there, it's about as complicated as Eastgate Mall. There's hurdles. And, for decades now, they've been trying to get over those hurdles, previous boards, previous administrators, we're dealing with it. Eventually, something's going to happen there. Hopefully, same thing with Mount Carmel. I think with the Kroger closing, that's going to be a game changer. I don't know in what direction. That could be a negative, depending on what moves in there. Could be a positive. I mean, I'm hoping for a positive. And I guess to reiterate what you said to the residents of Mount Carmel, we're not ignoring you, we do care. And we will do what we can do to improve that area. We know it needs work, and we want to do it. And the last comment I have, I guess, would be for the public interested in a cemetery plot, now's the time to buy. They're on sale.
That's pretty funny. That was pretty funny, John. They're not- Oh, when am I gonna just go buy my plot for me? Yeah, that's make sure. So good point. I forgot. Actually, I read on here. Kroger, Mount Carmel.
Yeah.
What's going to go in there? We don't own the building. Kroger owns that building,
Yeah.
and they're going to sublease it out to whoever. Or I should say lease it out. They're the ones who own the
Sell
building.
it, yeah.
So they might sell it. They might lease it. I mean, we have no say over that. So we'll help. We'll of course help. But if we can, if they approach us, but that's a private building, private land. So there's nothing we can do about it. We have no say in it unless they approach us, obviously, or we approach someone. But yeah, go ahead, Mr. Early.
Yeah, a couple things to touch up on. I hear exactly what you're saying when you say hands are tied with roads. I mean, and so one thing that reminded me of, though, as well, and it's an education piece. It's not necessarily something that we have to lead any effort on, but it's for the residents. Ms. Ayers and the staff can at least put together the research on this. So I don't think it'd be too intensive on the human capital cost, but if a certain neighborhood wants their road repaved more frequently, I learned this at the Ohio Township Association Winter Conference last year. They can actually pursue and petition to put themselves on for their own special improvement district, essentially, or road levy for their own neighborhood.
Taxing district.
So if they want to go ahead and have a frequency of road repavements that's every 10 years or every year, they can pursue that. So I think that's a piece of education the government can offer residents. If they have an outlet, you have an opportunity to do something about it. But basically, we're not going to ask the backs of the rest of the taxpayers in the township to pay for, a stub street or side street somewhere. So that's one opportunity that I think is good and educational for residents to be aware. And, again, they're going to understand more about our pavement program with this PCI test. So that's one aspect. I think that's an education thing that can get done fairly sooner than later. If the question comes in about that in this area, that's driving it hard. Same thing on cemetery fees. That probably is something that the survey and information can get done on sooner than later. Joe, I'm glad you brought up the DORA districts. That's something I think is excellent for the township. Right now, with where we're rated on population-wise, we can have 2 DORA districts of contiguous 300 acres. And when we're over 50,000 residents, we can have 3 or greater. 3, I believe. 3. So, but when I think about it, it's great to get feedback from the community, but when I think about it, I think 2 satisfies the majority of what we have going on in the township between a Mount Carmel type location and a Eastgate Mall type location. And 300 acres, however that gets drawn out. So I think that's exciting. I think that's something to think about for Mount Carmel. In addition to the ARPA funds, I heard you reference, restaurants and enticing the right type of unique, those are things that I'm sure Ms. Ayers can look at for the right type of incentives, if that's something that's deemed worthy. It has to be something that's worthy, that's for sure. I love that you referenced the parks. I was maybe light on that myself because I was going off the top list of what I saw here from the residents, but I know that recreation and parks is something that always matriculates to the top. We hear it from residents all the time. Each one of us, I'm sure you've all taken your family to Juleps Park in Anderson Township, but you're absolutely right, they have a park levy. So yes, I love the fact to be able to do public partnership on parks. But at the same rate, we have some potential options in front of us too. We sold a park for $1.2 million last year. So I don't know what would be necessarily wrong with reinvesting park funds and park resources into the parks. So that might be something to consider. So that's one thing. With that, you referenced Veterans Park. I'm going to strongly also say Kleppers Park, where I'd led an initiative for us to pursue the CBDG grant for the playground equipment. It's terrible. It's dilapidated. It has the same issues you see at Veterans Park. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I think if we're going to have a park, we're going to have a park. Otherwise, Veterans Park, that's 60 acres. Do you develop it? Those are the type of questions that I think that have to go out there. So I strongly think, obviously, the commitment there, the CBDG grant, and the pickleball court, and the master planning for the parks overall, but I think we got to look at, those are the two primary parks that should be receiving the refresh of what you're talking, that forever turf, and looking at what's the best fit. Otherwise, we got to look more strategically as, do we keep 60 acres of park at Klepper Park, or do we do something different with it? So,
That's good.
those are some comments there. I think that kind of rounds that out. So, look, again, I'm just very excited about this opportunity that we had our first Board of Trustees working session. You guys have heard me talk about plans, strategic plans, being able to, to move forward. And I think that we're starting on that path right now with our goal to, just come together and create a brighter future for Union Township where residents can feel safe, engaged, and connected. And I think it's clear that our focus on improving parks, paving more roads, pursuing smart development, cleaning up the township, and launching, the new website for increased transparency, accountability, and communication, it's a demonstration of our dedication to making Union Township a better place for everyone. And I believe that by working together and utilizing all the tools at our disposal, we can create a community that not only attracts businesses, but also provides a high quality of life for families. Like Mr. Austin. I thank each and every one of you residents came out here tonight, and the board and staff, for commitment to making Union Township a great place to call home. And I just say, let's work together and make it happen. So thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Logue. All right, upcoming events. 2 weeks from today, we'll have our business meeting, which will be our regular scheduled trustee meeting. So 2 weeks from today, so Tuesday, March 14th, 6 p.m. right here. And gentlemen, nothing further. I'll ask for a motion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
No discussion. Mr. Campbell, roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Mr. Dills?
Yes.
We're adjourned at 7:23 PM.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good discussion.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it.